Welcome to today's episode of Falling to Freedom, where addiction ends and faith begins, the weekly podcast that brings thoughtful, informed, and challenging discussions about addiction to the forefront of everyone's minds. We join our host now, Chad Lacombe, for today's topic.
All right, well, today we're joined by Big Al Aceves, one of the co-founders of the Mongols Motorcycle Bike Club. And, as always in our discussions, we're just talking about addiction, drugs, and, how that affects pretty much every area of life. We have a saying that addiction's the dirty little secret that every family deals with, but nobody wants to talk about, right? And it's not just for any one group. So we're glad to have you, Al, and was hoping that you could just start with maybe sharing a little of your story and what role drugs, alcohol, addiction played in that.
Well, I grew up in East Los Angeles. My family's from El Paso, Texas. I come from a broken home. When I was a little kid, I was raised with my grandfather, who was very, very, very abusive. So actually, I grew up under a bridge with a gang there. That gang there is called the White Fence Gang. It's one of the oldest gangs in Los Angeles. And right there I grew up. At first they give you the end of a beer with a spit in it or a little bit of wine, and you graduate from there. You graduate to pills. And then heroin. I was a heroin addict for 35 years. And you just, if you know anything about heroin, is you have to have it. One fix is so good. 2 is okay. And the third one, you're hooked. You're hooked like a dog. I used to run the streets like a rabid dog, looking who I can bite, where I was going to get my next one. I grew up small time, just doing this and that, but I got famous. I ended up going to Mexico, different states, collecting money for the cartel. At that time, it was the cartels, but I ended up in Mexico City, where I was bodyguarding the head of the banks of the cartel. And I was with them, came home. The drugs take you to a place where you want to be, where no matter what happens to you, you're there and you don't care. Or whatever you have to do, you're going to do. Mm-hmm. When I used to go collect money, I'd laugh, I'd go in there, and, they try to give you, because they got money. They got, where I went, people had to have money to hire me. And I'd go in there and I'd tell them, I said, hey man, you owe money. So, checks in the mail. And I'd laugh and I'd tell them, you don't want to pay now? It's okay. You pay when you come back. And they would say, well, where are we going? Where am I going? And I would tell them, going to the hospital. And I would point to the guys that were with me and I said, they're going to beat you and your wife and your kids. And then we're going to come back. And then you don't have the money. We're going to beat you again. And if you call the cops, don't worry about paying. And that's who I was, just like an animal. That's what it did for me.
How old were you when you started?
I think I started robbing when I was 13, 14. I was shooting heroin by the time. Pretty good at 15. I went to prison for armed robberies. Friday night in the old days was the best time to rob the liquor stores. You go into the liquor stores and put the gun on them, take them in the back, tape them, go to the register, hit it, take the money, pick up the little tray, look at there, and then you look underneath, because in those days they didn't have safes. What they would do is they would put the money in a cigar box, the big money, and then you just get that and we'd leave. I'd take their watches, their wallets. What heroin did for me was make me an animal. Mm-hmm. But since I got saved, my Lord and Master Jesus Christ has taken me away from that. I'm the co-founder of the nation, the Mongol Nation. I'm going to explain something to you. If you ever see that patch, they made that patch after me. That's where the devil had me. I usually don't say this, but I'm going to say this. When I was very young, I accepted the devil into my life. That I was his, that I would do what he wanted. Without rhyme or reason, I would do it. I was a little trophy boy. I wasn't afraid of nothing until I got saved and got delivered. You know, God is so good that we don't seem to realize the things that we do in later years, it comes back. Because now I go all over the world. I've been to India. I'm going to different states. And you could see my face. I mean, I'm not an educated man. You could tell by the words I use. I can barely read. I read the Bible, I do. But a lot of words, you know, I have to look them up so I know what I'm talking about. But I'm not a preacher, a teacher, nothing like that. But God has given me the gift of prayer. And I pray for people all over the world. Mm-hmm. They call me and ask me if I will pray. I answer the phone all night. My wife gets mad. Who was it? They wanted prayer, Mom. I don't know who it is. You know, that's who I am. Do you want me to talk about the war?
Yeah, but I mean, we could just kind of talk a little bit about that before we get into that. You know, I was just thinking when you said, you know, you were doing the devil's bidding, and now obviously you're doing the Lord's. And in Romans, it does say, you know, you're going to serve somebody.
That's right.
You're either going to serve sin and death, or you're going to serve the Lord in righteousness. Those are your only two choices. It sounds like, you know, from your life story, you know, you probably take things to the extreme. You know, in the world, you go to the extreme in that. But for the Lord, you can go to the extreme in that as well. And that's a good thing.
You know, there's a line. You know the line. There's a line. Once you pass it, it's no turning back. Mm-hmm. It's just like when you put a gun in your hand and the person's coming and you know you're going to shoot them. But once your finger's on that trigger and you squeeze, there's no turning back. You can't, right. Oh, I'm sorry I shot you. No, I wanted to shoot you. Mm-hmm. And you don't stop. You know, when you're serving the devil, you know, there's nothing you won't do. Yeah. There's nothing you won't do. You know, you become a person, you're not the person that people see. Mm-hmm. Because inside of you, there's a raging fire that makes you do things that a normal human being wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And that's been my life. You know, people tell me, you know, I went to the Mongol clubhouse yesterday and I did a blessing of the bikes, and then the kids come up, the young men, they're not kids, they're men, come up and hug me, and you're a legend, you're this, you're that. So I put myself in a room by myself. You know, there's guys over there in the corner smoking weed or whatever they're doing, but I'm there, and they come and I pray for them. Mm-hmm. Individually. That's even before I do the blessing of the bikes. God is good. You know, I never had feelings for nobody, for nothing. Not my wife, not my children, not my mother, not my father. You know, I never knew my father. I'll tell you a little story. I seen my real father twice. One time when I was a kid, I was playing outside and he came in a car and my godfather called me. He said, "Hey, come here, Poncho." And I ran to the car. "This is your father." And I looked at him. I said, "My father's in the house." And I ran. The second time I seen him, I just bombed Safeway for the grape boycott for Cesar Chavez. I was arrested, and some people bailed me out, and I'm pretty sure it was the Communist Party. They bailed me out. And I was outside, and he came to my grandma's house. I was hiding there because the feds would follow me around, or the local police, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, I was hiding there, and he came, and he says, he tried to act like he was all. I said, "Man, cut it out." You know what I mean? I didn't know you. I don't know you. I don't care. All of a sudden, last year, I think it was last year, my wife said, "Hey, there's a girl wants to be my friend. Her name is Aceves." I said, "Hey, call her back. Could be my sister." So we called her. I called her. She says, "Are you Alfonso?" I said, "Yeah." "What was your father's name?" I go, "Johnny." She goes, "That's my father." So they came from Texas, New Mexico, all his siblings. You know, I talked to them. They loved him. And I told my name Tyson. He used to beat my mom. But he used to bring him money. I said, "Seen him twice in my life. He gave me $60 once." And they said, no, he should take checks. I go, he never brought nothing. You know, that's been my life. I only by the grace of God, all that's gone. And the people I've hurt, oh my goodness. The things I've done to people, only God can forgive me. Because those people ain't ever going to forget. You know, you cut somebody in the face every time they wash their face. You've seen that scar. They remember you.
Yeah.
You know that. Your brother, you know, I thank God I'm here giving this little testimony, you know, about drugs, what they do to you. Man, you know, I'll tell you, I have a daughter named Rose, stepdaughter, but I love her. She was my right arm. And I would get up in the morning. She was getting up to go to school. I'm getting up to go in the bathroom and fix. And I get up and I look at her and I just turn my head, go in there. I shoot up and I come out. There's this little girl comes out and I get her and kiss her. Hi, baby, I love you. She said, Dad, you had to go in there first before you say hello and kiss me. So they knew.
Yeah.
You think they don't, but they know. But I didn't care. I mean, honest.
So you were 50 when you stopped using? You said you were 15 when you started, and about 35 years, so...
Yeah, it's been
50?
about that, yeah,
50?
around there. Well, I went to the pen, and I followed the old rules. There's no punks, no gambling, no drugs, no alcohol. So, and, you know, there's always drugs around you. You know, you're in a clique, you're in a gang, we're Southerners. And, you know, one guy always hits, and here, this for you. And I would tell him, I don't want it. Give it to this guy, and I'd give it to another guy. I didn't even want to touch it. Because for about 35 years, I was a heroin addict. For reals. I didn't like, when I came home from Vietnam, I smoked a little weed, but I would get paranoid. You know, and I would take some LSD, all that. But heroin was my thing. When I was in the club, we'd go out and nowadays, we'd go camping and we'd be out there by the stream drinking. I would drink the neck of a bottle and give it to the prospects. I had guys in the club that were heroin addicts too. And the guys that, when we fought, they were right next to me, stabbing, shooting. They didn't care. They didn't care. And those were my guys. There are other guys, they're wonderful guys, they fight too. But these were my guys. They would kill.
And that was after, you mentioned Vietnam, so the Mongols starting that was after Vietnam, correct?
Yeah, I came home, and after I did the bombing, the grand jury hadn't indicted me, so I was hiding. First, well, after I got on bail, which nobody, Father Luce and Father Woods had just got kicked out of Bolivia, and they came to see me in the glass house, and they said, you're going to get out now. And I said, yeah, all right. And I got out, you know what I mean? But yeah, and, anyway, they followed me. I ended up going to this guy. First I lived with this girl, then we lived in a castle in Hollywood, and then I went to Whittier Boulevard, Pico Rivera. A guy there had a waterbed store and posters. And I went and told me, man, he said, man, come on, stay in here. The gangs are robbing me. So I went there. I knew the gangs. First, when they came in, I started laughing, and I told the little girl, hey, come here. You want to take this and this to your mother? Tell her I'm here. Just take it. And then I used to do leather work, purses, belts, with those little things you tap them and put flour, all that nonsense. So that she came and she said, what are you doing here, Alice? I'm staying here just under my protection. She laughed. She said, okay. So and then the gangs would come, we'd talk, but they won't steal no more. When you give up on being a human being and you become an animal, some people respect that. More than when you're, the clergy, everybody wants to respect the clergy, but they don't. But when you're an animal and they know you could snap, well, you snap, and you do something horrific, they say, hey, man, who? And he's over, they don't come. Unless they come in force, you can always get got. You know what I mean? Shoot you in the back, shoot your wife in the back. They don't care. Nobody cares.
So, why did you go into which branch of military were you in?
I was 101st Paratroopers.
Okay, so Army. What did you go into the Army for?
Because they were going to pay me to kill.
Oh.
You have to understand. See, everybody likes a good guy. The guy in the white hat, the white horse, I was for the black hat guy, right? Because he was stealing the money. He got caught, and he always gets caught. Or, if you go on, you see him. The criminals all got nice things, right? Growing up in the neighborhood. So anyway, I lied all the way. When I went in, I went in, and they give you this dream sheet to sign, and you could go to Europe, all that. I put Vietnam. The lady guy said, "Oh, he's a good American. He wants to go to Vietnam." They put us in a line. A guy told me what to say because I already had been in jail. And so the sergeant came and said, "Who's ever been arrested?" He said, "Raise your hand." I raised my hand. And he said, "Okay, you guys go over there." So they put me to one side. So then the sergeant came out and he was all mad. I know that face. You're disgusted with. And we were in the line, and the guy in the left had high heels on and makeup, and the guy in the right had these jeans. He couldn't even breathe. So I knew they didn't want to go to Vietnam. So he told me, "What were you arrested for?" I had the lie ready. I said, "I just come out of the church dance. I had a can of beer, and the police got me walking home, and they took the beer. And they saw me." He said, "Go over there, soldier." So they sent me. I went to Fort Ord. But yeah, I went to Fort Ord, and from there, I wanted to go. I was a paratrooper. I volunteered for Vietnam. When I was in Kentucky, I went to Vietnam the first time. I was there. As I said, I had accepted the devil as my Lord and Master. And we'd kill people. I used to cut their ears off. I used to cut their throat, cut their ears off. I made a little necklace. That's where the devil had me. I was no John Wayne, nothing like that. I want you to understand, the devil had me. One time we went out on a patrol. Well, they called it LP, that's listening post, the first one, and they cut the bombs so we couldn't kill them, and we came running in, and I had the gun over my shoulder. I was running, and I'm shooting them in the back. So this guy Al stood there and fought them. I didn't fight nothing. I was running in back of them. They were coming. And then they send me out again, and this time there's like a little lake or something, and this kid, we had to lay down in this hole because the machine gun fire went right over us. And I told everybody, just stay down, don't look up, don't do that, stay down. And this kid falls asleep. So I get a knife and I put it to his throat, and I tell him, "Man, I'll kill you. Don't you dare. I'll never do it again. Now don't tell us." I ain't going to tell. So I'm thinking we're going to come in because of the machine gun fire, breathing. No. He sent me to a worse spot. Now there's this big Buddha in back of me, and they got a little like a wall around the Buddha, and we're in there. And okay. So he set out the claymores, the bombs, and we're in there, and I tell the kid, "Okay, man, I'm gonna go to sleep now. You got first guard." Well, the kid falls asleep and lays next to me. And they're coming, they're shooting. And this kid sits up in front of me and takes one in the head. Oh, so, all right, and I'm calling it in. They say, "Don't come in." I want to run. Don't come in. They're everywhere. Okay, so morning comes. These guys don't know how to make a stretcher. So what I do is I put 2 pieces of wood down, throw the stretcher, fold it over, I put the kid on it. We don't go 10 steps, and he grabs it. He says, "I can't take the pain now. I can't walk." So he comes one of those guys on a boat, and he's coming with that stick. I go and get him, put the gun, I put the 60 machine gun on there, put that kid on there, call it in. He said, I'm coming in, man. And the guy took one in the head. I called in the helicopter. So the little lieutenant said, I'm putting you in for a Bronze Star, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we ended up going to, what do they call it? Ashaw Valley. They made a movie about it. So I went to Ashaw Valley, got hit 3 times. They only gave me 1 Purple Heart. And I ended up going from one hospital. Then General Westmoreland came, shook my hand. I stood up, blood coming, blood area. No, lady. I said, no, man. My family, we're military. We're military family. So they took pictures, all that nonsense. I didn't know this guy was going to save my life. So from there, I ended up going to Japan. I told them I want to go back to Vietnam. They sent me, to the psychiatrist. I had a bag of weed. I took it with me on the plane, in the stretcher. So anyway, I would give, you want to smoke a joint? Yeah. So they would take me to the chow hall, all that, because I couldn't walk. I had a big giant hole in my leg. So they took me to a psychiatrist, and he goes, here, sign this, section A. I said, no, man. He said, well, what did you tell them? I said, all them people came around my bed and said, where you want to go? I said, I want to go back to Vietnam. And he goes, why did you say that? I said, where I come from, if they hit you, you hit them back. I want to go back. He goes, I'm going to send you home on an R&R. So I went home, naturally. My parents, oh, bless them. I was a nut. And I had a wife. She was already with another guy. I had a son. And anyway, my dad couldn't take, my stepdad, he's a wonderful man. But he couldn't, I was nuts. So he threw me out of the house. He threw me out of the house. Bless his heart. And I ended up on Whittier Boulevard in a little hotel dealing drugs. My cousin gets busted. He gave me up. I ended up in this court where, from juvenile hall, you go to, the judge knew me. He was yelling at me in front of everybody. We gave you a chance. I heard you went to Vietnam. I said, I'm a soldier. Shut up. And then everybody's going to kill me now. Everybody. You get the judgment, you got a beating coming. So I'm sitting there, and here comes a clerk. Like, he's huffing it, man. And he gets to the judge, and he gives him this teletype or whatever, a yellow paper. And he looks at me. I go, if he yells at me again, I'm going to tell him something. I knew him since I was a kid. And so I'm looking at him. He goes, stand up. And I stand up. He said, everybody be quiet. He said, the commander-in-chief of all of Vietnam asks for your presence in Vietnam. We're going to let you go. So I said, all right. They didn't let me go, man. The MPs took me to 4-door. I was in 4-door. I ended up taking LSD, I urinated on this guy that talked too much at night, threw him out a 2-story window. The guy that was the IG, the general, he was my friend from Kentucky. He goes, you could be my driver. I go, man, I'll put you in jail. You just send me back to Vietnam. He didn't want to. And I told him, look, he said, what about your wife and kid? I go, gone. He goes, really? I said, they're gone, man, history. So he sent me back to Vietnam. And I did worse things then. But this priest tried to bust me because I was, cutting up the bodies, the ears, but they sent me on this flight, Eagle flight. They would drop me off by myself. I would look for the enemy, they'd come back and pick me up. But I ended up coming home. They knew I was nuts. I didn't want to come home. I had nothing to come home to. Yeah. I told them, they go, man, they looked at me and said, you got to go. What was the cherry on the cake? They brought us from the field back in, and then we went to guard bridges, right? Bridges, and we're sleeping outside and all that. And just before it got dark, I walked and I went down how they grow the rice? I went all the way down because some little girl told me that they were having a wake. And so I went there and I stayed all night. So I seen the whole thing. The guy was half black, half white, painted. And so when I came back, I yelled and I told the guy, hey, I'm coming in. He goes, no, you're not. I said, it's me, Aceves. If you shoot me, I'm going to shoot you back. What are you doing? Never mind. So I went, and there's a guy right here that sells food. And there was the captain and a major sitting right there. And the captain says, sir. I went and sat by myself. I didn't know nothing to talk. And the guy comes running out of the kitchen, gives me a beer before he even talks to them. Anything, what you want, anything. Hero. And then he tells them what I did. They just looked at me like, this guy is nuts. He's nuts. So I came home, and then I got busted. I got busted one time, and then the second time, that was it. They were giving me, I think they were trying to give me 130 years. I was hiding out with this girl, and then I needed a lawyer. So all these lawyers volunteered. Man, because you're a Mexican, because you went to Vietnam, because. And the last guy came with a black suit, and he had so much wrinkles and dandruff. I said, let's get rid of this guy quick. And he stuck his hand out and he said, my name is Richard Wasserstrom. I'm a head of the law department at UCLA, and I would like to defend you. Not only me, but every one of my students that have left me for the last 5 years I have contact. They're going to work on your case. I said, you're hired. Right?
Yeah.
He knew my uncle, Armando Morales. He was a teacher there too. So anyway, we go to court, man, and the DA got me, man. Oh, this, that, and I'm looking at him. So the sentence comes. I shoot up some heroin. I take a tab of LSD. I take some Reds, drink a bottle of wine. 130 years. I don't want to cry. You know what I mean? Or faint. Oh, no. I don't want to. So we go in there, and man, the day before when we're going down the elevator, the lawyer says, Al, if only you were crazy by accident or been in the service. And I tell him, man, I was in Vietnam twice. General Westmoreland decorated me. He couldn't stop laughing on that. Al. I said, check it out. Call the Pacific Theater. So the next day, like I said, I was wiped. When we parked where you can park, we're walking across the street. Woo, 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 woo. And my lawyer looks like an Indian. He's looking for me. And I'm thinking he's an Indian. I said, check that Indian out, man. And when I get to the sidewalk, because I'm crossing cars honking downtown, the Federal Building, and I get across the street, and he looks at me and goes, General Westmoreland, send this. I said, I told you I knew him. And so we go to court, and the DA gave this. And so my lawyer says, Your Honor, it's my turn. And he goes, but I would just like to submit this one paper. And go ahead. The DA said, we got him. Go ahead. So DA didn't even look at it. And the judge reads it and looks at me. He says, Mr. Aceves, you didn't say you were a war hero. I looked at him. This how it was. So I said, you never asked me. You didn't ask. And they go. They walk. He gets the DA. The DA goes. My lawyer comes back. Can you take 20 years? Yeah, that's a lot. I'll take 20. From 130, we're at 20. I said, he comes back. He says, oh, will you take 10 years? I said, give me the paper. I'll sign right now. He goes back and comes back. And then the judge had lost his son in the war. And so he looks at me, he goes, Mr. Aceves, you say you went twice. And I said, well, I served my country. I don't know where that came from.
With the right words.
But it came out. And he says, you know, the DA, he wants to book me for Broadway. And he goes, yes. He says, Mr. Aceves, I'm going to give you a chance. He gave me 100 and something days in the county jail and 5 years probation. Wow. So I did that, but I did all kinds of.
So did the Mongols come in after that? Was that after all of that?
No, I was back and forth with them.
Okay.
See, when my mind, it was an army on wheels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at that time, right now how they're saying, watch this, there's Trump sending all the illegals back. Our families were taken back in cattle cars, whether we're legal or not, during the Zoot Suits. So it was nothing new for us. You know what I'm saying? So right now they're making it a big deal. But no. So it was a race thing, to be honest. I mean, people working out there in the fields, you had to be awful poor white to work with Mexicans. And then they give you a gun to watch the Mexicans. You know what I mean? I mean, you got to be honest. Our time, we're still in the fields. You know what I mean? We're still in the fields. When Trump said, bless his heart, he was going to get everybody and send them back, all the farmers say, hey, man, then who's going to work the fields? And, he tried to say, oh, the white people need jobs. They weren't going to go out there. You know what I mean? And I'm not against the whites. I don't care. I'm a soldier. I mean, the whites fought right next to me. My brothers, a lot of them white. You know what I mean? And they'd die with me fighting. Man, when you're fighting in a crowd, hope to die, whoever's next to you, that's your brother. You don't care what color he is.
Absolutely. So what, like on the motorcycle club side of it, what role does, addiction, certainly personally using drugs, but maybe even, for financial reasons, could be manufacturing, could be distributing. I mean, is it a part of that world?
Yeah, of course. In those days, different clubs held different things, right? I don't want to say what they did because then they're going to say, hey, you snitched on us. But, because see, you got guys that'll do anything. So naturally, the real dealers are going to come to you, hey, man, do this. Hey, man, do that. And if you're hooked, man, you ain't going to feel the stab until the next day. You're going to go at it or you're going to shoot somebody. You don't care. I've seen guys get stabbed 3-4 times and not even know it. They were so high. For me, I mean, I was high all the time. I was high.
It's just a part of that life.
Yeah. And, a lot of people say, oh, no, I'm a working man. I laugh at them. I tell them, you don't love your wife or your kids. And they would tell me, what are you talking about? I work, I got insurance. If you loved your wife and kids, you won't be in the club. Why? Because if they kill you, who's going to be the father? You're in prison, who's going to bring the bread home to your wife? And they go, well, I said, no, you got to look at it right. I was blinded for so long until Christ came into my life.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to touch on that, with a little bit of time that we have left, Thank God we're not the people we used to be, right? And so if you, would just share with our listeners, what's going on in your life right now, what things you're doing, for the Lord, but also on the recovery side. We'd love to hear what you're involved in.
I go and speak all over. I've been to India. I go to different states. I go to men's homes. In town, there's hope. Let me tell you something. I ran a rehab for, I think, almost 9 years. And when we first started, the church, bless their hearts, they didn't know nothing about rehab. They all thought they did, but they want to do a 90-day program. I said, that ain't going to work. They want to do a year program. That don't work. 2 years. And they said, why 2 years? Because it takes a year to make a sober decision. It takes 2 years, so you stop dreaming about it. Anybody can say, oh, no, the light came, boom, they lying. Or they weren't really an addict. They were, just mischievous, to put it politely. You know what I mean? I'm a chaplain. I'm a state chaplain. April the 5th, I'm going to be a federal chaplain. And I've already gone into death row, and I'm going to be going to different death rows. That's my thing besides going out and speaking. And God alone has guided me now. I mean, today was a miracle for me. Man, God has just guided me wherever and even I don't want to. I didn't want to come that day. I didn't want to come. I was so tired. The Mongols wore me out. But I woke up 3 a.m, took a hot shower, woke my wife up, dropped her off, because I was supposed to be in San Diego. But God had something for me to do. Not only this podcast, but I had to go to a church that I never knew. Some guy came, I had to pray for them. God is so good. You know, being a chaplain, on the 26th, I rent a ship every year, and I give the money to the veterans every year. But this year I rented a ship, and I'm going to give the money to my church. And then on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I'll be in Miami. And then on the 31st, and this is in April, on the 31st of March, I'm going to be there doing something up there in Victorville. And it's like 4,000 people, so I'm going to be speaking. So God has a purpose for everybody. Everybody. I don't care who you are, but you got to accept it. You don't accept it's fine. You know, it's fine. You don't have to. God's a gentleman. He ain't going to make you. But what's going to happen at the end, man, I got family that hate me. They hate me. And I got people that want to kill me. To this day, they say, I'm going to kill him. But God don't. I died twice already. I've died twice. And God has brought me back. I had a quadruple bypass. And God didn't let the devil take me.
He's not done with you.
No, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here with you. Brother, I just thank you for This is great. This is great. I'm going to go home, take off my shoes. My wife is not going to come home tonight, so I got the bed.
Yeah.
And I'm just thanking God that I had the honor and privilege of being here with you guys. God is good. God is so good.
Praise the Lord. Well, Al Aceves, thank you so much for...
It's my honor and pleasure, brother.
Yeah.
Please, and keep up the good work.
All right. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for being a part of this much-needed conversation as we expose the raw truths about addiction. Don't forget to like, follow, and most importantly, share. Remember, addiction is the dirty little secret that every family deals with, but nobody wants to talk about.